The night of the storm, the desert planet of Karos groaned under a red sky, sand whipping like knives through the air. Eli Morgan stumbled through the storm, his eyes half closed, his breathing shallow, his ship burning behind him like a dying sun. He had lost everything in that crash: food, gear, and every bit of hope he carried. The storm howled like a living beast, and all he wanted now was a wall, a roof, any kind of shelter to keep his mind from breaking. He walked for hours, maybe days. It was impossible to tell time when the sky stayed red. His legs shook, his throat felt like stone, and just when he thought the world would swallow him whole, he saw a faint light through the dust. It flickered once, then again. A tiny glow among the endless darkness. Eli pushed himself toward it, falling more than walking, crawling when he had to, until he reached the edge of what looked like an abandoned village. The houses were made of black stone, half buried in sand, roofs torn away, doors hanging crooked. No sound came from anywhere except the whisper of wind through broken walls. Still, the light glowed inside one house, warm and golden like a promise. He knocked weakly at first, then harder, his voice breaking as he called out, "Please, anyone there?" For a long moment, there was silence. Then the door creaked open just an inch. Two large eyes, silver and glowing faintly blue, looked back at him from the darkness inside. A soft voice said, "Human." As if tasting the word for the first time, the door opened wider, and he saw her, an alien woman, tall and slender, skin pale with a soft shimmer like moonlight on water. Behind her stood another, younger but with the same haunting eyes. The older one spoke again. "You shouldn't be here. The storm brings more than wind." Eli could barely stand, his voice cracking. "Please, I just need shelter." They looked at each other for a moment that felt like forever. Then the older one sighed, stepped aside and said, "Come in, before it follows you." Inside, the air was still but heavy, filled with a strange scent of metal and herbs. The walls glowed with faint lines, symbols etched long ago that pulsed like veins. Eli dropped near the fire pit, shivering as his body tried to recover. The younger sister brought him water in a bowl made of crystal glass, her hands trembling as if she touched something forbidden. "I'm Eli Morgan," he whispered, "from Earth." The older one nodded slowly. "Earth, yes, the old world," she said. "I am Lyra. And this is my sister Soren." Her voice carried a sadness deeper than the storm outside. Eli thanked them, his voice soft. "You saved me," but she shook her head. "No, human. Nothing is saved on this land." Thunder cracked outside, shaking the house, and the fire dimmed for a moment. Soren gasped and clutched her sister's arm, whispering words in a language Eli didn't know. Lyra placed a hand over her heart and looked at him. "It is not safe after nightfall." Eli frowned, confused. "Why?" "What happens at night?" She stared into the fire as if afraid to answer. "The Watcher walks when the wind sleeps." Eli tried to laugh, thinking it was a story to scare children. Watcher? What kind of watcher? But neither of them smiled. Soren's voice trembled. "It waits for outsiders. It hunts what does not belong." Eli's heart pounded. Yet he forced a grin. "Then I'll leave when the sun comes up." But Lyra only said, "If the sun comes up." Her tone made the fire feel colder, and for the first time, Eli noticed something strange. There were no footprints in the sand outside, not even his own. He rubbed his eyes, thinking it was exhaustion, but when he looked again, the sand outside was smooth, untouched, as if the world itself had erased him. Lyra noticed his stare and said quietly, "This village hides itself from the stars. The storm keeps it unseen." Eli frowned. "Why hide from what?" Her eyes met his, bright like the edge of lightning. "From those who made us." The words sent a chill through him, but before he could ask more, the wind outside stopped, completely, unnaturally. The silence was worse than the storm. Even the fire seemed afraid to move, its light frozen on the walls. Then came a low hum, deep and metallic, like the growl of a machine buried underground. Soren whispered. It followed him, and Lyra's face turned pale. Eli stood slowly, reaching for the old blaster on his belt, though he doubted it even worked. "What's out there?" he asked, his voice barely above a breath. Lyra answered, "Something older than you. Older than us. It hunts warmth. It hunts voices." The door began to rattle, though no wind touched it. Eli stepped forward, gripping the weapon, ready to defend his hosts. But when he looked toward the narrow window, a shadow passed by, tall, thin, and moving without sound, the air grew heavy, pressing against his chest like a hand. Then a whisper slid through the cracks in the walls, a voice that wasn't human repeating his name, Eli Morgan. Soren screamed and covered her ears. Lyra pulled Eli back from the door. The fire flared bright blue, casting their faces in light and terror. Eli felt his blood freeze as the voice outside spoke again. You carry what was lost. Return it. He turned to Lyra, confused and scared. What does it want? Lyra's eyes were wide, reflecting the flame. It doesn't want you dead. A human. It wants what's inside you. Before Eli could speak, the door cracked open by itself, wind rushing in though the air outside was still. In the light of the fire, the shadow took shape, a tall figure made of sand and steel watching with empty eyes. Lyra whispered the words that would haunt Eli for the rest of his life. It followed you here, and then the light went out. Echoes in the dark when the light vanished. Only the sound of Eli's heartbeat filled the silence. He could not see his hands, only feel the cold air pressing against his skin. Then slowly the strange blue glow returned, lines of light crawling across the stone walls like veins waking from sleep. Lyra held Soren close, whispering words in her ancient tongue, while Eli stared at the door that had opened on its own. Outside, the storm had stopped completely. The red sky now black and silent, he stepped closer, every instinct telling him to run but curiosity pulling him forward. There was nothing in sight, no wind, no footprints, no shadow, just an endless plain of sand glowing faintly under the strange moons. And yet he could feel something watching, something that breathed without lungs and moved without sound. Lyra's voice cut through the still air. Do not step outside, human. Eli turned back, his eyes full of confusion. Why, what is it? Soren answered, her voice trembling. It remembers what our ancestors made, and it remembers who broke the oath. Eli frowned. You think it came for me? Lyra nodded. It follows the scent of creation. It hunts those marked by the old machines. Eli didn't understand, but he noticed the strange hum again, coming not from outside but from himself. A soft vibration beneath his skin like a buried circuit waking. He lifted his hand, and to his shock, the glowing symbols on the wall pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Lyra stepped back, fear in her eyes. It's you, she whispered. You woke it, before Eli could reply. The floor shook, dust falling from the ceiling, and a deep tone filled the air like a metal bell underwater. Outside, something massive moved across the sand, slow but heavy, as if dragging chains. Soren began to cry softly. It will take him. Like it took the others, Eli turned sharply. Others? What others? Lyra hesitated, then spoke. Many humans came before you long ago. Their ships fell from the sky like stars. They sought shelter here, and none ever left. Her eyes grew distant. The Watcher learns from each one, it takes what it needs. It grows, Eli clenched his fists. Then I'll break the chain. But she only shook her head. No one breaks the Watcher. Human. It was born from your kind. The hum inside him grew stronger, rising and falling like a pulse through metal. He felt dizzy, seeing flashes, bright laboratories, human scientists shaking hands with alien engineers, laughter and then fire, explosions, screams. It was as if memories that weren't his flooded his mind. He fell to his knees, gasping. What is happening to me? Lyra rushed to him, touching his shoulder gently. You carry the code, don't you? Eli looked up, confused. Code? What code? Soren answered from the corner. The memory seed, the echo of the first contact. They hid it in one of their own to protect it from destruction. Eli shook his head. I'm just a cargo pilot. I don't even know how to fix my own ship. But the walls kept glowing. Brighter now, forming patterns, circles, spirals. Words in a language that hurt to look at. Lyra whispered. It's inside you, sleeping until now. Your crash must have awakened it. Suddenly, the entire house began to hum with the same rhythm as his chest. Soren screamed. It found the signal. Outside, the sand lifted, swirling into shapes, arms, faces, fragments of metal and bone forming a figure. The Watcher stood tall against the horizon, its body glowing with the same symbols as the walls. Eli staggered to the window, his breath fogging the cracked glass. The thing's face had no mouth, only a smooth mirror surface that reflected his image. When it moved, the ground trembled, and in that vibration he heard words, not spoken but felt. Return the memory. Restore the link. Lyra pulled him away, shouting. It's trying to merge with you. Eli shook his head. Panicking. Merge, what does that mean? Her eyes filled with tears. You are the last connection to what humans promised and broke. It wants to finish what was started. The roof cracked above them as the Watcher's tendrils of sand wrapped around the walls. The symbols burned brighter, and suddenly Eli's veins lit under his skin like liquid silver. Soren cried out. He's turning into it. But Lyra refused to move. She placed her hand over Eli's heart and whispered a word, something ancient and soft, and for a moment, the light dimmed. The humming stopped. The Watcher froze outside like a statue of dust. Eli fell to the floor, shaking but alive. When he opened his eyes again, the storm had returned, roaring louder than before. Lyra helped him sit up, her voice trembling but calm. It will not stop now. It knows what you are. Eli looked at her, desperate. Then help me understand, what am I? She hesitated, then said, Not human, not machine. You are the echo of the first alliance, the living memory of peace that both sides tried to erase. Her words hit him like thunder. He felt both terrified and strangely connected to something greater than himself. The fire flared again, golden and alive. Outside, the Watcher dissolved into the sand, whispering in 1,000 voices, We will return. Lyra turned to him and said, Tomorrow we go to the ruins beneath the dunes where the truth still sleeps. Eli nodded slowly, feeling the hum deep within him begin to fade. But even as he tried to rest, one question burned in his mind like fire. If he was not just human, then what was he becoming? The secret of the sisters. The storm calmed by morning, leaving behind a strange silence. Eli woke with sand in his hair and fear in his mind. The fire had died out, and faint blue light still pulsed across the walls. Lyra and Soren were sitting near the door, whispering to each other in low tones that stopped the moment he stirred. Eli rubbed his eyes, his voice rough. You said we'd go to the ruins. Lyra nodded, though her expression looked older, heavier than before. The path opens only when the suns rise together, she said, pointing toward the twin orbs slowly climbing the horizon. Soren looked pale and distant, avoiding Eli's eyes, her hands clutching something hidden in her cloak. They walked out of the house, the sand crunching beneath their feet. The village behind them seemed smaller now, swallowed by dunes. Only a few black towers still stood, their tops cracked and glowing faintly, as if mourning something long lost. Eli followed Lyra as she led him toward a ridge where the ground shimmered like glass. When he stepped closer, his boots sparked blue light and a metallic ring echoed deep underground. Lyra turned and said, The old ones buried their secrets here. Her voice trembled, not with fear but with reverence. She touched a series of symbols carved on a stone slab, and suddenly the sand began to move, revealing a spiral staircase descending into the earth. Eli stared, amazed. You knew this was here all along. Lyra's eyes darkened. We were born to guard it, Soren whispered. To guard or to hide. The air below smelled of dust and old machines, and faint vibrations pulsed through the metal steps as they went down. The deeper they descended, the colder it became. Lines of ancient script glowed on the walls, a mix of human code and alien markings. Eli ran his fingers over them, feeling something familiar, a pull in his mind as if the symbols remembered him. Lyra stopped suddenly, her hand pressed against a door made of dark glass. This is the Chamber of Origin, she said softly. Our mother died keeping it sealed. The door opened with a slow hiss, releasing a wave of cold air that carried a faint hum like a song trapped in metal. Inside were rows of transparent pods, most shattered, their surfaces covered in dust. In one unbroken pod floated a faint light, a form that looked human yet not completely. Eli stepped closer, breath held. Who is that? Lyra's voice broke. That was the first one, the bridge between our worlds. They called her Sarah. Soren's eyes filled with tears. Our grandmother. Eli turned sharply, confused. Grandmother, you mean? She was human. Lyra nodded. Half and half not. She was born when the first treaty between Earth and our kind was signed. But the peace did not last. Eli looked at the sleeping figure inside the pod, her skin pale silver, her face peaceful as if dreaming. She died centuries ago, Lyra continued, but her code still sings, and it calls to what you carry. Eli touched the glass, feeling warmth pulse through it. The pod lights flickered and the faint hum inside his chest returned, louder this time. He gasped, "She's connecting to me." The chamber's walls came alive, holographic symbols spiraling across the air, showing images, humans and aliens shaking hands, building together. And then war, betrayal, fire. Lyra's voice trembled. When peace fell, they tried to erase all records of our unity. But Sarah saved one, hidden in a human soul, reborn again and again. Eli stumbled back. "You're saying I'm, what, her creation?" Lyra stepped closer. "You are the continuation of her code, the echo of her hope." He shook his head, unable to believe it. "I'm just a man who crashed here, nothing more." But Soren whispered, "Then why does the chamber wake for you?" Her words cut deep. Eli's hand began to glow faintly, the same color as the pod's light, and his reflection in the glass shimmered into something else, his face merging with another, older version of himself wearing armor marked Project Haven. He staggered back, fear and awe twisting inside him. Lyra looked at the image, whispering, "Project Haven, the lost seed of Alliance." It was real. The holograms showed more, revealing blueprints, DNA patterns, and coordinates. One of them glowed brighter than the rest, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra touched it, her voice soft. "This is where the Watcher was born." The ground shook violently, dust raining from the ceiling. Soren screamed, "It knows we opened the chamber." The pod lights flickered and the humming became a roar. Eli grabbed Lyra's arm, pulling her toward the exit. "We have to go." But Lyra didn't move, her eyes fixed on the glowing map. "This is what it wants, Eli, not you, not me. This." A deafening crash tore through the chamber as the metal door twisted inward. The Watcher's shadow spilled across the walls, its voice echoing from everywhere at once. "Return the origin. End the divide," it said. Lyra shouted over the noise. "Run!" Eli grabbed her hand, pulling Soren behind him. But before they reached the stairs, the chamber lights went black. The last thing Eli saw before darkness swallowed them was Sarah's pod, cracking open, releasing a single breath of silver light that floated toward him. It touched his chest, vanished inside him, and everything went silent again. The awakening darkness surrounded them like a living ocean. Eli gasped for breath, the air thick with dust and energy. The pod behind them shattered completely, silver mist spreading through the chamber like glowing smoke. Lyra held Soren close, her eyes wide as the ancient lights flickered back to life, bathing the room in blue and gold. Eli felt his chest burning where the light had entered him, a strange rhythm echoing in his heartbeat. When he looked at his hands, silver veins glowed under his skin, pulsing with every breath. Lyra's voice trembled. "It chose you." Eli turned to her, still dizzy. "What does that even mean?" She took a step closer. "Sarah's code, her consciousness, it has passed into you." Before he could reply, the ground rumbled again. The walls of the chamber began to move, shifting like gears inside a massive machine. Symbols rearranged themselves, forming a circular gate that slowly opened to reveal a tunnel bathed in bright light. Soren whispered, "The lower sanctum. No one has entered it since the fall." They stepped through carefully, every sound echoing endlessly down the metallic corridor. As they walked, they saw murals etched into the steel walls, humans and aliens standing side by side, holding spheres of light, their eyes filled with hope. Eli stopped, running his hand across the carving of a man who looked exactly like him. The name engraved beneath it read, Haven Unit 09. His breath caught. "That's me," he whispered. Lyra nodded slowly. "You are not the first, Eli Morgan. You are his echo, his copy, a continuation that never died." He shook his head, confused. "So I was created." Her expression softened. "No, you were remembered." The tunnel led them into a vast chamber where metallic roots spread across the floor like veins. At the center stood a huge structure, a black sphere half buried in the ground. Humming softly, Soren whispered, "The heart of the Watcher." Eli stared at it. "But if that's the heart, what's the body?" Lyra answered. "Everything above us, the dunes, the desert, even the storms, it's all part of it." He stepped closer to the sphere, drawn by the sound it made. The hum matched the rhythm in his chest, and as he reached out, it responded, glowing brighter. The surface shifted like liquid metal, showing him visions, cities floating in alien skies, humans working beside strange beings, and then explosions tearing them apart. A voice filled his head, calm but ancient. "You were meant to heal what they destroyed," Lyra called to him. "Eli, stop." But he couldn't. The pull was too strong. His hand touched the sphere, and the entire chamber erupted in light. For a heartbeat, he felt everything, every thought, every scream, every hope that had ever existed in both species, and then it all focused into one truth. He was the last bridge between two broken worlds. The energy threw him back, slamming him to the floor. The walls cracked open, revealing enormous stasis pods buried in the rock, each one holding beings that looked half human, half alien. Their bodies shimmered with the same light that burned in Eli's veins. Soren gasped. "They're alive," Lyra whispered. "No, they're waiting." The chamber shook violently as the Watcher's voice returned, deeper now, echoing from the metal itself. "You cannot awaken them. The cycle must remain." Eli stood, defiant. "You destroy everything that tries to live free." The Watcher replied. "I preserve what must not change." Lyra grabbed his arm. "You can stop it. You carry the key." Eli looked down at his glowing hands, the pulse of Sarah's code beating through him like a living thing. He pressed his palms against the floor, and lines of light spread outward, connecting to the pods one by one. The sleeping hybrids opened their eyes, their breath filling the silence like wind through leaves. Soren cried out, "He's doing it," but the Watcher screamed, the entire chamber trembling, dust falling like rain through the shaking light. Eli saw memories that weren't his. Sarah standing before the Watcher long ago saying, "You were built to protect life, not imprison it." Her voice merged with his, echoing through the metal. "I am not your enemy." The Watcher hesitated, its glow flickering. Eli took that moment to push harder, his body shaking. He sent the full force of the code through the network, awakening every pod, every mind that had slept for centuries. The sound was like a storm of voices rising together. Human and alien as one, the light burst outward, and the sphere cracked open, releasing a beam that shot up through the sand, splitting the surface world apart for miles. The desert glowed like dawn breaking in the middle of night. When it faded, silence returned, only the heartbeat of the new hybrids echoing in the dark. Eli collapsed, breathing hard, his skin dimming as the silver light faded. Lyra knelt beside him, her hand trembling against his chest. "You've awakened them, but the Watcher is not gone." He looked at her, eyes heavy with exhaustion. "Then we finish this together." And somewhere deep below them, the voice of the Watcher whispered softly, almost human, "The beginning returns." The betrayal. The underground city glowed like a living heart beneath the sand. Light pulsed through its metallic veins, running through the walls, the tunnels, the floors. Eli stood in the middle of it all, still weak, his skin faintly silver under the new light. Around him, the hybrids, the ones who had slept for centuries, were waking. Confused but alive, Lyra helped one of them stand, whispering words of comfort in an ancient tongue. Soren, however, stood apart, her eyes cold and unreadable. Eli looked at her, noticing the tremor in her hands. "We did it. They're free now." Soren didn't answer, her gaze fixed on the glowing walls. "They shouldn't be free," she whispered under her breath. "They shouldn't exist," Lyra turned sharply. "Soren, what are you saying?" Her younger sister stepped back, her voice shaking. "You don't understand. This was forbidden. We were never meant to awaken them." Eli frowned, stepping closer. "Forbidden by who?" Soren's expression hardened. "By the ones who built the Watcher." Her words hung in the air like a blade. Before Lyra could speak, the floor trembled, and a distant rumble echoed from above. Eli felt the cold crawl up his spine. Ships were descending. Lyra's face turned pale. "You called them?" Soren's voice cracked. I had to. I sent the signal last night. The fleet will be here soon. They'll stop this before it spreads. Eli's eyes filled with disbelief. You brought soldiers here, Soren shouted back, tears mixing with anger. You don't know what you've done, human. These things, these half-souls, are not peace. They're weapons, Lyra's voice broke with grief. They are our people, but Soren shook her head. No, they are mistakes, Eli stepped between them. Soren, listen, the Watcher is the real threat. Not them, but she had already turned away, her communicator glowing red, her voice steady. This is Soren of the Guardian line. Target confirmed, engage on signal. Above ground. The sky cracked with fire. Dropships burning through the red clouds like falling stars. Lyra grabbed Eli's arm, panic in her eyes. We must hide the awakened ones. Eli nodded, his mind racing. We can use the lower tunnels. But before they could move, the Watcher's voice filled the chamber. Cold and metallic it spoke. The error repeats itself. Creation turns against creation. The hybrids froze, their eyes glowing faintly as if the voice pulled at their minds. Eli shouted, No, stay with me. But some of them began walking toward the sound. The walls shifted, forming paths that led toward the surface. The Watcher was guiding them, to their death. Lyra pressed her hand against the console, sealing half the exits. We can't stop them all, she said. But we can save a few. Eli looked at her. We need to reach the core again. Maybe we can shut it down. She nodded. But the soldiers will reach it first. Soren turned back toward them. Her face full of conflict. For a moment, her anger faltered. You don't understand. I did this to protect you, Lyra shouted. Protect me by killing everything I love. Soren's eyes filled with tears. If the Watcher merges with him, it will end all life. I saw the code, Lyra. It's not salvation, it's reset. Eli stepped closer. Then help me stop it, not destroy it. But before she could reply, the ceiling exploded and light poured in from above. Alien soldiers descended on anti-grav wings, their armor gleaming silver, their weapons humming. Contain the hybrids, one shouted. Eliminate the human. Lyra screamed. Run! Eli grabbed her and ducked behind a pillar as plasma fire cut through the chamber. The hybrids panicked, scattering, their newly awakened minds filled with terror. Soren stood frozen between both sides, her heart tearing in two. Then with a sudden scream, she ran toward the command console and slammed her hand on it. Energy burst through the floor, forming a shield wall between Eli and the soldiers. Lyra shouted, Soren, what are you doing? Her sister turned, her face glowing in the blue light. Buying you time. Eli saw the tears in her eyes. You'll die if you stay there. Soren smiled weakly. I was born for this. The Watcher's voice returned, softer now. Sacrifice detected. Energy threshold rising. The chamber trembled as the energy built. Eli realized what she was doing, transferring her life force into the system, feeding the old network one last time. He ran forward, but Lyra held him back. She's gone, Eli. Let her finish. A beam of pure light shot upward, piercing the sand. The soldiers screamed as their armor melted, their weapons dissolving into dust. Soren's body turned to light, her last words barely a whisper. Forgive me, sister. When the light faded, silence returned once more. Lyra fell to her knees, tears running down her face. Eli stood beside her, the chamber flickering with unstable light. Through the smoke and ruin, the Watcher's voice echoed one final time. The bond strengthens. The bridge nears completion. Eli looked at Lyra, his jaw set, his voice steady. Then it ends tonight. She nodded, wiping her tears. Together above them, the sand began to move again, forming the shadow of a colossal figure rising from the desert. The Watcher had awoken fully, and the final war for the heart of two species was about to begin. The last stand. The ground trembled like the heartbeat of a dying world. Eli and Lyra stood on the edge of the ruined chamber, their faces lit by the fading blue glow of the city beneath. Above them, the sandstorm twisted into a giant spiral, lightning flashing red through the clouds. From its center rose the Watcher, taller than any tower, a figure of shifting metal and living sand, its eyes burning with the same silver light that pulsed in Eli's veins. The wind roared, carrying the whispers of countless voices, the echoes of every being the Watcher had consumed. Lyra gripped Eli's hand, her voice steady but full of fear. It's awake completely now, there's no place left to run. Eli stared upward, feeling the vibration of its presence deep inside his chest. It's inside me too, he said quietly. I can hear its thoughts. What does it say? She asked. He took a slow breath. It wants to rebuild everything, even if it means destroying what already exists. The hybrids gathered behind them, dozens of glowing eyes watching in silence. Some were afraid, some ready to fight, all waiting for direction. Eli turned toward them, his voice carrying through the dust. We're not mistakes. We're what they feared, proof that life can change and still survive. The hybrids responded with a soft hum, their bodies glowing in unison. Forming a wall of light behind him, Lyra stepped forward, activating an ancient control node buried in the ground. Metallic structures rose from the sand, turrets, shields, fragments of old human-alien technology reborn. This was our ancestors' last fortress, she said. Now it's ours. Eli nodded, gripping the sidearm he had carried since the crash. Though he knew bullets meant nothing against God, still he raised it high, shouting, "For Soren!" The first blast from the Watcher hit like thunder. The shockwave tore through the dunes, scattering the soldiers' wreckage like dust. Lyra raised her hands, forming a shield of blue energy that flickered around them. The hybrids fought beside her, their energy weaving into the barrier, holding back the storm. Eli charged forward through the chaos, each step shaking the sand beneath him. He could feel the Watcher inside his mind whispering, "End the pain, surrender your will." But he shouted back, "I am not your echo." The Watcher's voice thundered, "You are mine." Bolts of plasma rained down from the sky, lighting up the battlefield like dawn. Eli ran straight into it, his body glowing brighter with every step, his blood humming like an electric current. He leapt onto a half-buried tower, raising his arm toward the massive being above. The silver veins across his skin burst into radiant lines of power. From his palm shot a beam of pure light, striking the Watcher's chest. The creature staggered, a sound like breaking metal echoing across the horizon. But instead of falling, it split its form into many smaller figures, shadow copies swirling around Eli like ghosts. They attacked from every side, their movements fast and sharp. Lyra screamed his name, sending bursts of blue flame from her hands, burning through the shadows. Eli fought like a man possessed, not with skill but with fury. Each blow he struck sent light rippling through the battlefield. But for every shadow he destroyed, another rose, until the entire desert seemed alive with moving darkness. Then he heard Soren's voice, soft, distant, but clear, whispering from the light inside him. The code, Eli, merge it, he understood. This wasn't a battle of strength. It was a test of connection. He closed his eyes and reached out, not to fight, but to join. The light from his body spread outward, touching the hybrids, touching Lyra, linking every heartbeat into one rhythm. Together they became a single pulse of life, a storm of shared memory and purpose. The Watcher screamed, its massive form shattering under the pressure of unity. Lyra's voice rose above the chaos. "He's doing it." Energy exploded across the desert, bright enough to turn night into day for a moment. The world seemed to stop breathing. When the light faded, the Watcher's body knelt on the sand. Cracks running across its surface, Eli stood before it, his chest glowing with the same light now pouring from its core. The machine spoke weakly. "You are part of me." Eli shook his head. "No, I'm what you were meant to protect." He placed his hand on the Watcher's chest. Lyra ran toward him screaming, "Eli, no!" He smiled faintly. "It has to end here." The Watcher's voice trembled. "If you merge, you'll lose yourself." Eli looked up at the burning sky and said softly, "Maybe that's what being human means." The desert exploded in light once more. Swallowing them both, Lyra fell to the ground, her tears glowing as she whispered, "Please come back." Above, the storm began to fade, the red clouds breaking apart, revealing the first sunrise in years. And in the silence that followed, a single voice echoed through the air. Eli's voice, faint but calm. "I'm still here." The dawn packed. The storm had ended. For the first time in living memory, the sky above Karos was clear. Golden light spilled over the dunes, turning the once dead world into a sea of quiet gold. Lyra stood alone on the edge of the battlefield, her hair tangled, her eyes searching the horizon where the Watcher had fallen. The desert was silent now, except for the soft hum of life returning. Broken towers stood like ancient graves, glowing faintly as if remembering what had been lost. The hybrids, those who had survived the battle, were kneeling around the crater, silent in mourning. The Watcher's body had turned to glass, its shape frozen mid-collapse, and at its center burned a single point of light, faint but alive. Lyra stepped closer, her heart beating fast. She reached out her hand toward the light, whispering, "Eli." The glow pulsed once, and she heard his voice not from outside but inside her mind, gentle and calm. "I'm here." Her breath caught, tears filling her eyes. "You're alive." His voice carried warmth through the cold air. Not alive, not gone, something in between. The light flickered brighter, shaping itself into a faint image, Eli's silhouette. Made of silver dust and sunlight, Lyra covered her mouth, trembling. "You merged with it," he nodded slowly. "I had to. The Watcher wasn't evil, it was broken, trapped in its purpose." She listened silently, the wind moving her hair like soft fingers. Eli continued. "It wasn't built to destroy. It was built to protect creation. But centuries of isolation twisted it. It forgot its heart." His figure shimmered gently. I reminded it. Lyra knelt beside the light, her hand hovering above the glass. "What happens now?" she whispered. Eli's voice grew softer. "The code is rewritten. The cycle ends here. No more erasing. No more fear." He looked toward the hybrids in the distance. They will inherit both worlds, not as weapons, not as experiments, but as proof that unity can live. Tears slid down Lyra's face. "And you, what about you?" He smiled faintly. "I am part of this planet now, its guardian, its memory." The light around him shifted, spreading across the ground like veins of silver beneath the sand. Wherever it touched, the soil began to change, sprouting the first signs of life, tiny glowing plants pushing through the dust. Lyra watched in awe as the dead desert began to breathe again. The hybrids gasped, their bodies absorbing the warmth from the ground, their dull skin now alive with color. "This world will live," Eli said softly. "And so will they." Lyra pressed her hand against the glowing ground. Feeling the warmth travel through her veins, she whispered, "Then let me stay. I'll help them rebuild." Eli's light flickered softly. "You were always meant to, Lyra. You're their bridge, their heart." The morning sun climbed higher, shining over the endless dunes. The ruins of the Watcher slowly melted into crystal plains. Reflecting light like oceans of glass, the hybrids stood together, lifting their faces toward the sky. Some cried, some smiled, all feeling the pulse of a new beginning. Lyra closed her eyes, hearing Eli's voice fade like music carried by the wind. "Remember, I didn't come here to be a hero," he whispered. "I just wanted shelter." Her tears fell onto the glowing sand, and the ground beneath her shimmered like water. Eli's final words echoed through the rising wind. "But I found something far more." The light expanded one last time, sweeping across the horizon in its glow. The scars of war vanished, the craters, the broken towers, the ruins, all turning into fields of silver grass waving under the new sun. The hybrids fell silent, placing their hands over their hearts. Whispering a vow in both human and alien tongues, they called it the Dawn Pact, a promise to never let fear divide creation again. Lyra stood among them, her face calm and radiant. She whispered to the wind, "Rest now, Eli Morgan. The world you dreamed of is awake." The light faded gently into the sky, leaving behind only the sound of new life and the soft hum of peace. And as the twin suns rose higher, their golden rays stretched across the planet like a promise kept. A human heart had merged with an alien soul, and from their unity a new dawn was born.